Hello, hello. Still good morning where I am. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
Morning.
Good to
I'm
see you.
having my lunch.
Oh, you should. I've made mine. I'm going to have it in the car on
Oh,
transit to the next thing after this. I'll just kill Fathom. We don't need Fathom today. Did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Good.
Yeah. You?
Yeah, there's lots of kids' sport, and we drove down to Deakin in Geelong because Sienna's thinking about a course down there on waterfront. So yeah, it was good. Bit of a road trip. She got some hours in, so can't.
Yeah. Far from getting her license.
Yeah, she's about 90. She's only got hit 35 hours, and she doesn't turn 18 till March. So
Okay. It's
yeah,
got a while. Yeah.
she's got a little while, but it's
Mm.
also, do you want to drive? And she's like, no, too tired. So we're trying to, no, you've got to be driving.
Yeah. We had that, and Scott turned 18 in April. He didn't get his license until the December for that
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's hard to get up to the 120 hours.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
we've established that she's done a lot of freeway driving, but not so much kind of stop start nighttime driving.
Yeah.
Then it rains and she's, oh, I don't want to drive in the rain. I'm
It's
like, well,
scary. It's
yeah,
scary.
and
Mm.
you are going to need to drive in the rain. So
Mm. Mm.
yeah, but that's okay.
Mm.
We'll let everybody else come in. Good to see you though. Good to see that you're on the other side of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Katie. Hi, Amy. We'll give everyone some time to come on in for a Monday. It's hard to believe these Monday masterclasses come around so quickly. But that's the year, hey? The year is just disappearing quickly. Katie, Amy, where are you coming in from? If you're able to pop it in the chat. Hi, Amy, how are you?
Hey, good. I'm joining from Sydney.
Oh, nice to have you today.
Thanks.
Hi, Katie. We've got about, I think 40 odd, yeah, no problems, 40 odd registered for this one. I think people kind of just come on in when they can. Jen, if you wouldn't mind letting people in from the waiting room, that would be awesome.
Sharita.
Thank you. Smack bang on 12 o'clock. If you are having your lunch, absolutely fine. No worries at all. If you are able to keep your camera on, please do. It makes it always a little bit easier. But good to see everybody here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because we're going to be going into some info today just about authenticity, obviously. Hi, Raylene. How are you? Nice to have you here. I won't be able to say hello to everybody as they join, but as if I can, I will. Hi, Dada and Ruth. Give another minute or so. I think they're all coming in now. Everyone's streaming in just past the hour. Well, a very good morning if it's morning where you are, or good afternoon if it's just gone good afternoon, or if it's just gone good afternoon to where you are. It's really lovely to have you here on a Monday. Welcome to you all. I hope you all had a splendid weekend. Just saying to Mandy as everybody was coming in that I spent time going around to universities. I know we've got a lot of university people on today, so a lot of university touring for open days over my weekends in August. Some of you I know were at those universities doing your thing too. So that's been me over the month of August. But it's lovely to be here with you today and to talk all things authenticity. I know Jen's going to be letting people in as we continue on. So we'll hear little doorbells. You might hear the little doorbell chime as people are coming on in. But again, a very warm welcome to you all. My name's Rita Chincotta, and today we're going to be running a little authenticity masterclass for the next 45 to 50 minutes, and then we'll leave some time for questions. Before we commence officially, I would like to acknowledge traditional owners of the land on which I'm coming to you today, which is here in beautiful Melbourne. So I want to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I extend acknowledgement to wherever you're coming in from today. I know we've pretty much got representation all over our beautiful country here in Australia. And if you're watching the recording and you're outside of Australia, welcome to you too. All right. So here we go, authenticity. And today is all about removing the mask and really being yourself, which is a lot, easier said than done, I reckon. But let's see what we can kind of get through in the next 45 minutes or so. Jen, I'm just going to do a check that we are recording. I believe that we are. And so the masterclass will be made available to you after today's session. Almost. Thank you, Jen. Awesome. Or if you want to, obviously share it with any of your colleagues after today, you're more than welcome to do so too. So authenticity today, authenticity in leadership in particular. So today the format will be, we'll go through our agenda. What we're covering quite a bit in 45 minutes. So it'll be a bit of a whistle stop across these areas, but with enough depth, hopefully, for you to get in there and really start to understand a little bit more about authenticity, particularly self-awareness, and why it's important in leadership. We know it's important. It's like, vulnerability and empathy and compassion. We instinctively know these things are important and people tell us they're important, but today we really want to get under the hood of why they are. So why it matters in leadership. I'm going to be using a lot of analogies obviously today, but mask on, mask off is one that you will hear me say a lot of today. And it's, really what I want to delve into this is the energy cost of changing, from mask on to mask off and doing that switch. In self-awareness, we're going to meet kind of 4 different personas, if you like, and be on this journey of how do we become more self-aware. We're going to look at why authenticity matters, as I said, and bringing in some risks and research. So we've got some research to back up why it is a good idea. It is a good idea, but we've got to make sure that we're being evidence-based and really looking to the literature. We're going to look at some practical tips on how you can lead more authentically, and it's not enough just to be yourself. So it's a little spoiler when we get up to that bit. And then we're going to look at specifically energy, performance, and relationships in leadership and why we need a more authentic style as we navigate those areas. And then, as I said, we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. Good to see all the little boxes in my Zoom. If I could see lovely faces, that would be even better. So if you are in an area where you can turn on your camera, please do so. Don't worry if it's lunchtime, as long as, if you're comfortable to turn it on, please do. If not, all good. And please feel free to contribute to the chat as we go through and raise your hand. I love to have people unmute and participate in the conversation. All right. So the mask of authenticity. And we've really focused on the mask today because that analogy, I think, is a good one for when we're moving into leadership or we've been in leadership for a while. As I have spoken to people over many, many decades, many tell me that they lose and have lost the essence of who they are. And we get to a kind of a critical point in leadership where we know that the person that we used to know and be connected to is kind of buried underneath all these layers. It's what I call these layers or these identity, kind of shields that we cake on, and we lose that essence of who we are. And then we get to a critical point where we really want to go back and meet that person. We want to be able to reconnect with that person. It's us at the end of the day, but we have sometimes lost a sense of who that person is. I was on a coaching call with someone earlier this morning, and they described what they're feeling as an existential crisis, is the term that she used. And she's right in the thick of it, right? So she's got, 3 kids, battling, different ages, but in particular those teenage. She's really thinking about what she wants to do. She's on a bit of a pursuit of happiness, really, oversimplifying it. But we did talk at length about getting lost under these very, very heavy layers that we end up putting on as we are trying to establish who we are as leaders. And this is often these masks that I talk about. And so when we do find that we're buried underneath who we are and we've lost that essence of who we are, we can start to see these kinds of things, as you can read there on the list, come about. And so we might be inconsistent in our behaviors. And that could be because we're trying different things and trying, to see what works. But it could also be that, we're not sure anymore around what works. And maybe something that worked before is not working anymore. If there's an inconsistency in behaviors that we're demonstrating, there's often a misalignment to values. And if you attended our Energizing Leadership Masterclass a couple of months ago, we spoke at length about values and really connecting into those values and having that values alignment. When we've got this mask of authenticity on too, we're experiencing self-doubt, imposter syndrome, which maybe some of us resonate with here. I'm going to come back to wasted energy, but this wanting to fit in, maybe wanting to fit into the leadership team that we're a part of, maybe wanting to, feel like one of our role models, that we've been inspired by. Maybe wanting to fit in because we want to belong, to this new group. Maybe it's a new organization, new leadership team level, as I said. Self-doubt, imposter syndrome are often then that's that trio with low confidence, which can come in. And others can get a sense of mistrust almost in us. And it's not because we're not being trustworthy, but it's because as we're putting on these different masks and really, unfortunately, losing a sense of who we are, it's hard to trust that. And maybe you've had a feeling of that, where it's hard to trust somebody that you may have been working with, or maybe, someone that that hasn't necessarily changed, but maybe they've moved up a level, or they've, taken on a new project or a new role. And as they're trying on different masks in terms of trying to be more authentic and finding themselves, maybe you just get a little bit of a sense of, hard to trust them. And as I said, it's not because they're necessarily acting in a way that is mistrustful, but often it's because as they're trying on new things, we can't get a true sense of their essence and what they're about. Yeah. So that's where their reduced trust comes in. The wasted energy, I wanted to come back to that. And this is where we're doing the energy or the mask switch. So when we are not sure of who we are, when we're not even sure of who we need to be, because we're doing new things, maybe we want to try a different style of leadership. As we don't have a sense of what we need to do yet, we've got this energy switch. And so leaders will often say to me, I've got a 360-degree feedback, or I've received some feedback, whether you've done a diagnostic or not. And gee, that doesn't quite match who I am outside of work. Does that resonate for anybody? Just give me a thumbs up if you've ever had that feeling of I'm this at work, but I'm this outside of work. Yeah. And when we're doing that, and it's not that you're necessarily doing something that you need to stop, but there is this wasted energy because we are switching between one mode and who we think we need to be in a particular environment versus who we think we need to be in another environment. And my invitation to you all is really have a think about that energy switch. And as we're changing from work mode to personal mode, how much of a switch is occurring for you? How much do you need to change? What kind of different masks do you need to either put on or take off as you are switching in terms of mode? And I've just picked two aspects, work and home, but of course there's a lot more than that. There's who we're showing up in our community, who we're showing up to for our friends, spiritually, any community groups or any kind of clubs or anything that you belong to. So if you think about us having to switch that mask all the time, that's a lot of energy switching that's going on. And I believe it's contributing to wasted energy. Whereas if we can show up authentically as who we are without necessarily needing to make that energy switch, we're just going to show up a little brighter, happier probably, and a lot more energized too. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat. Feel free to do that as we go ahead today. I'm just going to make sure there is some stuff in the chat. So let me have a look. Yeah, beautiful. A few hellos, which is nice. Yeah, keep that coming. So that's what's happening when we've got this mask on, and in particular when we're not even aware really that the mask is on, but we're putting it on. So now let's have a look at what happens when our mask is off. This lady looks like she's having a beautiful stroll down the street. She looks pretty confident, and I don't mind a pink suit if I do say so myself. She's values aligned, right? So she's in alignment. She understands what her values are, and she's in alignment with those values. Her behaviors are consistent. Now, she's not even going to be aware about this consistency of behaviors. It's just happening because her values are in alignment, and she's not having to make this energy switch. She's tapping into real energy that's being released for what she needs to do. So every conversation that she's turning up to, she's turning up present and with empathy and with compassion. Every new piece of work that she's going into, whether she's leading it or not, she's turning up fully switched on and ready to go because she is in alignment with authentically who she is. Her strengths are leveraged, and her strengths are leveraged because she knows what her strengths are. And she's focusing on those strengths and really getting the most out of those strengths as opposed to focusing on gaps. And it's not to say that we should ignore our gaps, but if we're paying too much attention to them, we're probably doing ourselves a disservice, because some of those gaps, you get to a point in time where it's really hard to change them. So again, we don't ignore them, but we've got to pay attention to them, but also know that we get a better return, a much better return when we are focused on those strengths. And often the analogy I use here is taking one of our Olympic swimmers who's a freestyler and trying to get them to become a champion in another stroke. Now you get, and this is where my analogies become undone because I don't know our swim team very well, but this is where we get undone completely, because we are trying to force fit an outcome into something that naturally is not going to happen or happen quickly. Beaming with pride and confidence. And that confidence, it comes from within. It is absolutely linked to our conviction and an inner belief. That is not stuff that you fake it till you make it. This is what you hold as a belief and you know it to be true, which is why it beams from people that absolutely are authentic. Our blind spots are acknowledged, and we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. And trust increases. People don't, excuse the language, but we've all got a pretty good bullshit radar kind of tuned in at this point in our careers and in our lives. And when people are inauthentic, we know it. And, you kind of get that cringe feeling. Does that resonate for anybody? When you're dealing with someone who's authentic, you're like, ugh, you are not nice to be around. It's like they're zapping energy from us as opposed to creating even more energy and an abundance of energy, right? So that's mask on, or sorry, mask off. So we want to, as much as possible, have this mask off. It doesn't mean, that we're not, it's not naturally going to come automatically. We will need to be conscious of, am I being truly authentic here, or is there more that I could be doing to be showing up authentically and just showing up as me without this heaviness and burden of this energy switch? And a pink suit helps, of course. All right, we'll keep moving. So I said earlier on that it's not enough to be yourself. I said that in the opening if you were here. And that's a message we often hear. Like, has anyone heard that? Just be yourself. Just turn up and be yourself. Now, in and of itself, it's not bad advice. But what if you don't really know who you are? Like, what if you've not gone on an exploratory journey of what are my strengths? What are my values? What are my blind spots? Do I have people around me that can give me an indication and help me out if I can't see my blind spot? So just being yourself is not enough. It's a good start. And if many of you are starting there, then great. But we need to do more than that. Because being ourselves and that advice of, well, be authentic, be yourself, it only works if you are truly connected to who you are. And that is a process of discovery, right? So this is, you've hopefully done a few diagnostics. You've got feedback, more important actually than diagnostics. You've got a good filtering system for what you do with that feedback, because not all feedback is actually for your benefit. I know. Did she just say that? Yes, I did. Not all feedback is for your benefit. Some people will give you feedback that is actually not meant to help you. Sometimes they want to harm. So you've got to have your own filtering system for whether you want to take that feedback on or not. Now, this is not then to be bloody minded and go, well, everyone can jam their feedback. Thanks, I'm good. That puts us in a territory of arrogance, and that opens us up to a lot of risk of blind spots. We don't want to be there either. So self-awareness here is the foundation. And without it, what we're giving off is that picture of being incomplete because we're not quite found yet in terms of what we want to do. That image is distorted, but also it gives that kind of feeling of being untrustworthy. So not enough to be yourself. I'm scanning for questions and comments. Anyone got a hand up? No. So far, so good? All right.
I had a quick question, if I may.
Hey, Olivia.
What about in a context where, say, you're having a difficult week, there's business challenges, whatever it may be? What's your kind of, I guess, advice in those situations where you're turning up to, you might be having a meeting with one of your reports, for example, is it best to try and focus on like being positive and, sort of how do you think is the right way of handling those situations? Is it better to be, open and honest and, about the fact the week's not going well, or?
Yeah, my view is yes, but I'm interested in other people's views on this. So Olivia, last week, it was Monday, and I'd had a challenging few days. I had I had been involved in a lot of learning, and I'd been involved in a lot of planning stuff, and my world just went tilt 180. And so I produced some content as I do every week, and I sent it on to the team. And I produced a video which was on the floor. I'm never on the floor for videos. I sometimes sit on the floor, but I don't. That's kind of, but it's where I needed to be. I actually need to be on the floor with big post-it notes and markers and kind of having a bit of a moment. There were some tears in that. There were some frustration. There was a lot of challenge in it. And I couldn't, that day I needed to produce content, but there was no way that I could sit in my chair with my lipstick on and try and pull together something like I normally do. It just wasn't going to happen. So I put a video out, which was me on the floor, and I got some beautiful messages to say, are you all right? Like, do you want to catch up for a coffee? My team said to me, oh yeah, okay, we know what kind of few days you've had, because it was just unlike me. Now I could have done the polished. I could have kind of faked my way through it, but I actually couldn't. I would have been doing a disservice to myself, and whatever I had said, if I'd tried to push through it, would have been inauthentic. So my heart wouldn't have been there, right? Now, I absolutely don't take for granted that I'm in my own business and I can do that. But even if I think back to executive days, it's so important to let those around you, if you've got good trust in that team that's around you, to let them know where you're at. And you don't have to. So I have a view on oversharing. So if you've been at a workshop with me and you've seen me talk about the Johari window, and we look at kind of stuff that's in the hidden quadrant, what you will have heard me say is that to be vulnerable, you don't need to give away everything, right? You can still afford to keep some things that are hidden to you and personal and for yourself, because that actually gives us a strength of or a sense of being in control. An oversharer, and doesn't matter, if you're on that spectrum of more oversharer than not, I don't want to criticize that, because you've got to feel comfortable if you are an oversharer. But being transparent doesn't mean that you need to go, blah, everything's happened, if you don't want to. Because I think that's a little bit of, that for me feels like a loss of control, and I wouldn't feel good doing that. But for others, in terms of building that trust and that vulnerability with their team, sometimes they do. They just want to go, blah, this is everything that's happening. So my view, it's a very long-winded answer. I think be transparent, let the team know where you're at, provided you've got good trust with your team or those around you, some colleagues, maybe some trusted colleagues. Because it's nice for them to know that, I can help you. You're not, particularly if you're in a role of leadership, we're often the one helping others. And it's nice for others around us to know that they can do that for us too, and they can hold space for us too.
Yeah, thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. I think being transparent wins over always having to find the positive, perspective.
And yes, and Jay, it is that humanizing leadership. It absolutely is. And when we're like, it's all good, there's nothing to see here, that's where people's bullshit radars go up and go, nah, I don't think so. Like that's life as a curated Instagram feed. And let's face it, nobody's life is that. I don't care how beautiful your Instagram feed is. It's like, show us all the bits that didn't go so well, Does that help with you?
It does, yeah. Thanks, Rita.
Pleasure. And don't worry, there's Jay that works with me was on the other side of me on the floor. She was there to pick me up that day. She certainly was. All right. So now we're going to I mentioned to you before that we're going to meet 4 people, and so they're kind of 4 personas, if you like. Now, as I was putting this together for you, my mind really wanted to give you a 2x2 matrix here, because I love a good 2x2 matrix. I'm a consultant. Who doesn't love a good 2x2 matrix, right? But I couldn't, because this doesn't fit beautifully in a 2x2 matrix. And in fact, I didn't even draw this for you as a list. This is a bit of a path or a road, and you can see the image in the back is a bit curvy and a bit windy. And I didn't want to distract you with a road with beautiful scenery and winery. Wineries? No, winding is what, God, it's Monday and I'm thinking about wineries. That's a problem. This is so these 4 different sections, if you like, of being on Authenticity Road are here to illustrate that there is a path to achieving authenticity, and it's not a linear path. And you will go up and down and around some curves, and you'll hit some detours, and that's all good. That's life, right? In terms of needing to be adaptable. But the detours that might hit us are things like imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, fear, sometimes not feeling courageous, and that's okay too. We don't have to be wearing super capes every day, superhero capes. But on Authenticity Road, I believe that we do start usually in a position of being in the dark. And this is where the blind spots are there. This is dangerous because here you don't know what you don't know. This is like my 17-year-old when she had 10 hours of driving practice trying to tell me that she could clear a curve, and she didn't. And we got into a big argument about that. But, you know, this is where we don't know what we don't know. And so blind spots can dominate. And what we need here is people around us that can give us an indication of what are those blind spots for us. That helps us to be more authentic. Here, because we're in the dark, sometimes we're unaware of the impact that we're having on others. And so we might be, you know, doing what we're doing and doing our thing, and then maybe losing some people along the way. Maybe people are not receiving us and our behaviors in a way that they were before. And we start getting a bit confused. And we go, oh, what's with them? What's their problem? Maybe it's not their problem. Maybe it's your problem. But maybe they're not telling you that it's your problem, because maybe there's not enough trust there. Maybe you're in a position of leadership and they don't want to run the risk of giving you some feedback. So here we're in the dark. We don't want to stay here too long. But it's hard to get out. We need people. We need others to help us get out. So then we go into the delusional phase. And here we think we know, but we really don't yet. So maybe we've had a little bit of enlightenment. Maybe we do know some things, but our self-perception is often misaligned with what the reality of the situation is. And so here we are still a little bit in the dark. Like, it's not fully illuminated yet. Our confidence, so usually earlier part of our careers, but not always, it can happen at different levels of career too. Our confidence can mask our gaps. And so here we're faking it till we make it, and people can see it. And we're not authentic. We're not saying, hey, this is where I'm at. And here trust erodes just quietly. They're not going to necessarily tell you, because maybe they're getting this sense of you think you know it all, you're arrogant, etc. So here we can kind of switch between and slip really rather between dark and delusional. So we have a few insights, and then we think we know when we don't kind of know everything, and we know enough to be dangerous, and we're still kind of in that territory of not yet being fully authentic. Then we get into doubt, and here it's a little bit of a turning point, because in doubt, we think we don't know, but we actually do. We know more than what we think. So here, confidence is still a little bit of an issue. Our strengths are undervalued because we've not yet really connected in with those strengths properly. And we're not getting the most out of those strengths. We're not yet connected. A bit of self-doubt and hesitation still. We're missing opportunities, missing maybe opportunities for a promotion, but maybe opportunities for conversations. Maybe opportunities for us to really demonstrate courageous leadership, and leadership with a big heart. But at least here at doubt, we know more than what we knew when we're at dark and delusional. And then we go to discovery. And just because we get to discovery, it doesn't mean great, set and forget, I'm here, I get to, not worry about this self-awareness thing anymore. Because of course, we're layered and we're nuanced and we're complex. And when we think that we have discovered what there is to know about ourselves, life throws another challenge or another opportunity, if you want to position it that way. And then there's an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more and discover more about ourselves. So here we know ourselves, we know that we know it. Our strengths are owned and leveraged. So we're really operating from that position of power, true and real power. Our blind spots are acknowledged. We've got good people around us that are giving us information on our blind spots in a constructive and beautiful way, just as we do for them. Our values and behaviors are aligned, and we are operating from them. They are our compass. We know them. We don't have to sit and do kind of 1.5, 2 hour, discovery sessions on what values are. They're just there. They're simple and we know them for ourselves. And trust and credibility grows. So our trust in ourselves grows, but also trust in around us. So those that trust us. We are a lot more genuine. There's no fake it till you make it here. So this is a path, and we could have put 10 steps in this path, but I wanted to keep it fairly simple for you and know that it's a progression, but it's very, very windy and very curvy. And when you think that you've hit another stage where you go, yeah, great, I'm at doubt now, I know a little bit more, then you hit a detour. And as I said, that detour might be imposter syndrome, it might be confidence, it might be fear. It might be second guessing because someone gives us a piece of feedback that we go, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. You're in control of what you do with that feedback and whether you take it on or not, and whether you need to take it on or not. So, authenticity road. We obviously want to get to discovery, but there's a path, and there's going to be a path with every single stage, particularly of leadership that we look at. All right. So now I want to move through to, why does this matter? Why is authenticity in leadership important? So when we're sitting in dark, delusional, and doubt on our authenticity road, there is this risk of loss of credibility. And the more senior we become, and it doesn't matter how senior in terms of leadership, but in a role of leadership, a loss of credibility is one of the most dangerous things that can occur. Because when you've got a loss of credibility, people stop trusting you, your brand is affected, your reputation is affected. People may not want to work with you or for you. So it's a risk, it's a huge risk. We've got reduced then psychological safety. There's a lot that is written on psychological safety, so much, and for good reason too. It's now being enshrined in our legislation nationally through our psychosocial hazards. But when we've got this position, when we're operating from a position of inauthenticity, masking as authenticity, people, as I said before, can't trust it, and therefore psychological safety is reduced. So they tell us less, they give us less feedback. Maybe they don't really want to tell us the problem that they're observing and seeing in the team. Maybe they don't want to give each other that feedback because they're not seeing good behaviors role modeled from you and maybe your leaders if you're working with a leadership team. So they're not going to turn up and be fully present and themselves because of this reduced risk of psychological safety. And then ultimately, it's a weakening of culture. And so the team that you are operating in, the organization that you're operating in, when you've got inauthenticity at play at different levels of the organization, it's a weakening of culture. So the place doesn't feel right. You start to get toxic behaviors. You start to get people really positioning for wins, individual wins, as opposed to collective wins. They're not really focused on the purpose, why we're here, what our strategy is, what we're doing. It becomes very individualistic. So that's this risk. And if you've got any other ones that you can think of, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm going to do a scan. Everyone good? All right. So now let's go to the research and let's look at what the research says. And there's a lot of recent research in this area, which is great. So normally when we're doing a literature review where, and we could have done a broader one, but I was really happy to see that some of the stuff that was being returned in the scan was very, very recent. And so you've got the journal prompts in there down the bottom, if that's your thing and you want to go and check out the literature. But in terms of what the research says, we know that authentic leadership dimensions, as they're called out in the literature, we've talked about self-awareness a bunch in this section here. We've also got relational transparency. And so relational transparency is what we spoke about before in terms of being transparent. And I think Olivia's question was a great one there around how transparent, really should we be? And should we be transparent if we're not feeling it? When we are, we're improving that relational aspect. It goes to social capital, but also connection with our team because they know that we're being honest about where we're at. We're looking also at balanced processing. So we're not just getting the job done to get the job done. We're getting the job done with authenticity there. And we're weighing up options. It's not getting the job done at all costs. It's also thinking about, as we're getting this job done, what are the other factors that we need to be considering here? People, culture, anyone else, any other stakeholders that are in that kind of space that we need to be thinking about. And the other part of authentic leadership is this moral perspective. Now, that's a hard one in the literature, right? Because what's ethical to me and what is aligned to my moral code is going to be different to everybody else's moral code. But it is having a foundational understanding that there are morals here and ethics that basically underpin this notion of authentic leadership. So they're the 4 call outs in the literature. When we've got those things at play, so self-awareness, relational transparency, balanced processing, moral perspective, the outcomes in organizations, you can see them there on the right-hand side. So trust increases, which is huge. Motivation. Our team's willingness to get on and to do what we need to do, we need them to do what we need to do. Our sense of well-being, our sense of being connected, our sense of belonging is there and it's increased. And also psychological safety, which I mentioned earlier on. So the literature is pretty clear. There's probably nothing, when I looked at it, there was nothing groundbreaking or new that came from it, but it makes sense. There is there's good evidence base and a good evidence base as to why we need to be more authentic and why we should be turning up more authentically as leaders. Anything surprising there for anybody? It's making sense. All right. So how do we do it? How do we move into more authentic leadership? So these are some habits that all authentic leaders commonly exercise, and these are things that I'm going to suggest to you today. And the first one is to invite feedback. Now, you might be sitting there going, but hang on, Rita told me that I could ignore some feedback. I can run it through my own filtering process. And yes, you absolutely can. You don't have to take on every single piece of feedback that you receive. However, we do need to invite feedback. And I'm sorry to say that the more senior you become, the more you say, give me feedback. I'd love to hear your feedback, the less forthcoming it's going to be. Does anyone want to tell me why they think that is? You're the boss. You've got the power. Don't you have the control?
I think that's where
Well,
they come apart, because they think, yeah, you do have control. They could get rid of me if I present them with, not so positive feedback. They'll resent me and they'll, look at a way of getting rid of me. So it's, yeah, you never want to give feedback to your supervisor or, the supervisor above them. It's because you know that they've got more control over your employment than what you have. So
spot on, Raylene. It's about a power dynamic here. And the thing that used to it now makes me almost smile in performance appraisals. Back when I was doing a big grown-up job, we used to run these systems, performance appraisal time, which I'm sure you're doing in your organizations, and we do it half year and yearly. And we would give feedback to the person as a leader. We would get them to fill in these complex forms that everybody hated. I'm not sure if they still hate them at your place. They do in a lot of others. And then we would say, great, fill in the form and then come to a discussion, and I'm just going to give you all the feedback. And then we would finish off with, so now, do you have any feedback for me as the leader? And, that was in the absence of a 360 or any other kind of feedback or a pulse survey or anything like that. We then expected this poor person to just go, yeah, actually, I'd love to give you some feedback. They were never going to do it. And often at that point, they wanted to get out of the conversation, and they're not going to give you feedback. So the more senior you become, you can invite feedback all you like, and you should be inviting feedback, but you can't do it unless you're creating the right circumstances with trust, openness, and you're actually thinking about a feedback culture. And that is that everybody's giving each other feedback. I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we were having a conversation about feedback. And the way that I described it is that it's an infinity symbol. So feedback is an infinity loop. That's nothing novel, right? Feedback loops have existed in the literature around this. But it doesn't matter what the hierarchy is, where I'm at positioned in the organization and who I am. We don't have to have a direct reporting relationship in order for me to give you feedback or receive feedback from you. It's just a two-way, right? It's happening between anybody. And then I said to this person, the other thing with feedback is that there's a circle around it. So if you imagine right now a infinity symbol with a circle around it. Maybe that's what you've imagined, something like that. And the circle around it is our culture. It's what we're saying and doing. It's the way we're behaving in this organization, in this team, in this family, even in this friendship group. And if our culture around us is not healthy and conducive to providing this feedback, we can invite feedback all we like. It's not going to happen. Or it will happen, but people go, oh, no. Have you got any feedback for me? No, it's all good. No, it's great. Thank you. Right? And they just leave the conversation politely. So if we're going to really demonstrate habits of authentic leadership, we've got to think about feedback cultures in our organizations first and foremost. Then we've got to think about feedback is just a loop, an infinity loop with anyone, anytime, giving each other feedback, preferably when the thing has occurred, when the thing that we've got to, have a conversation about has happened, and that we've got the right culture around it. It's like nutrients in a pot plant. I have some pot plants in my room here that are performing better than others, and I know it's because I've got to go back and have a look at the soil, right? So they can all be thriving. The other thing we've got to do is we've got to check assumptions, and they are our assumptions. So what are, the assumptions of our team? What are the assumptions of ourselves? And let's not operate from a place of assumptions. Let's operate from a place of knowledge. So if the assumption is, that I'm going to give my team feedback, so I assume that they're going to give me feedback. No, they're not, for all the reasons that we've just discussed. If I assume that I'm going to act in accordance with my values and behaviors, and that is in alignment, and that everybody else is going to do the same, no, they may not. And we can't make everybody act in accordance with, the values and behaviors that we suggest in organizations. So we shouldn't assume. We should really give the benefit of the doubt and operate from a position of curiosity and really be thinking about what's driving some of that. Name the blind spots. Now, this is when we're doing this, we're doing it often for others. So, Rita, I need to have a chat with you about interrupting. You do it all the time. I think you get really passionate about a topic and then you just want to blurt out. But unfortunately, when you do that, you cut the train of conversation for others. And because you're the leader, you then end up overpowering the conversation. Everyone does what you want anyway. So name the blind spots. Brene Brown became very, very famous for saying 3 words. Is it 3? Yes. Clear is kind. If you're familiar with any of her stuff, you would have seen her, you would have heard it, you would have seen her say it, you would have read it, right? Name the blind spot and be clear about it. Don't mince your words, don't be ambiguous. When we are ambiguous and we're not being clear, we're doing that person a disservice. Because we don't want to hurt their feelings. And yeah, we don't have to hurt their feelings. Naming the blind spot isn't about, being mean about it, mean-spirited, but being clear is really important. And then checking for understanding. And then back yourself when ready. This is about, when we're ready to jump off and jump into something new, back yourself. Know that you've got that support crew around you. Make sure you do have that support crew around you and then jump on in. But authentic leadership will require a little bit of risk. It's going to require some trust that you've got the skills within you to do what you need to do before you jump on in. But it is about backing yourself, probably before others do. So there's some habits of authentic leaders. I want to now extend that a little further into these 5 anchors of authenticity. And we know that this is based on research, but infused too with some of my own stuff in here. We know that in order to be authentic, and this is less about the habits, this is more about you just having these principles in place. So align your values and actions. If you haven't seen Energizing Leadership Masterclass, go back to it. We did an exercise in there around your personal values, but to make sure that your actions and values are aligned. So you need to, that sounds very terrible. You need to. When we are particularly in a position of leadership, people are looking for that consistency between what we say and what we do. And when you don't have that consistency between what you say and what you do, people go, can't trust. Inauthentic. It absolutely reeks of inauthenticity. So we want to make sure that your values and actions are aligned. being transparent. We talked about that earlier on off the back of Olivia's question. And my philosophy on that is be as transparent as you feel comfortable. Don't go into oversharing territory. You don't need to unless you want to share a lot. But be transparent. Let people know where you're at, because people can see it. As leaders, we almost have like a beacon of light that radiates. Obviously we don't, but if you imagine that people are getting that vibe around us, whether energetically it's safe or not. Like, are we in a good place? If we're in a good place as leaders, then they can be in a good place. But if we're not in a good place and we're not demonstrating or giving them an understanding of why we're not in a good place, that can set off alarms for them around, am I safe? Should I be concerned? Etc. Balancing the voices is about hearing different perspectives and being able to synthesize those. And if we want to be authentic, we can't just take our cues from one piece of feedback or constantly and consistently one person in the team. We need to make sure that we can hold different voices and really be holding those sometimes at the same time, and be talking to our teams and those that we're leading and including our stakeholders around us, around different points of view, and being able then to create an environment where people can hold those different points of view, but also work through them to get a path forward. Number 4 is probably the most important one for me. It's showing up consistently. And this is any time, any room, anyone. I used to work with someone that would behave in a particular way when they were with their team. So the team that they led, they were a very different person at the executive table. And it used to drive me insane, because it reeked of inauthenticity. It completely reeked of inauthenticity. I couldn't trust them because I was like, oh, hang on a minute. You're doing a bit of this and a bit of that. Why? What's your game plan here? And unfortunately, I was so curious about what they were trying to do that they probably did have some good stuff to say, but I just tuned out. I couldn't listen to it because my mind was too focused on their game plan and what they're doing, because they were inconsistent. And I was trying to work them out. Our brains look for patterns. We do that all the time. We're scanning and trying to look for patterns to see whether we think we're safe or not. So being consistent at any time, any room, anyone means that people don't have to second guess how you're going to behave and how you're going to show up. This also goes back to that energy thing that I mentioned earlier on today. You're not going to have to be doing energy switches, because you're not going to be worried about, oh, I'm with my team, so I need to behave in a certain way. And I'm with the executive, so I need to behave in a certain way. And now I'm with the board and I need to behave in a certain way. Just show up consistently. Any room, anytime, anyone. That's probably my favorite one. And then finally, be growth minded. So know that the authenticity that you know and feel today is probably going to look a little bit different to what it feels like for you in the next role, in the next stage, in the next thing that you're doing. And that's okay. We adapt, right? We're forever changing, we're adapting. But that growth mindedness means that we know that we've got that capacity to change and to adapt and to grow. And with that comes a little bit of vulnerability, because as we're changing and we're adapting, we don't have L plates that we can just chuck on our backs like my learner driver does in my family. You may have heard me say this before, but when my learner driver gets on the road, in fact, yesterday we were driving to Deakin Waterfront Campus, for anyone who's a Victorian, going to open days, and she was on the freeway and she probably swerved in or tried to change a lane without giving the other driver too much notice. It wasn't, too dangerous, but the other driver just kind of gave her a wave and slowed down. That's because she had an L plate on. They're not so kind when we don't have those L plates on. And unfortunately, in leadership, that vulnerability is really challenging because we don't have the L plate on. We can't say to our organization or our team, oh, I'm just learning, go easy on me. But imagine if we did. Like, imagine if we said to our teams, that strategic piece, I'm leading it. I've actually never led it. I've worked on things like that before, but I've actually never led it. So could you work with me, please? And really putting out to people what we need. That's showing authenticity. It's showing vulnerability, and it's being transparent. It means that people around you are probably going to, some of them might go, oh, who do you think you are then doing the role? Who cares about them? Focus on the ones that are going to hold that space for you and go, yeah, absolutely, let's do it together and let's learn this together. Okay. So these are our 5 anchors of authenticity. Now, ultimately, how does that fit into our world of deliberate leadership? And it's, our business is called The Deliberate Leader because we really focus on everything being deliberate and really being intentional and leading with purpose and intentionality. And we do that through 3 key areas. That is our energy as leaders, what we're putting out there, how we're creating energy, how we're maintaining it, and how we're sustaining it. Our relationships, so making sure that we're really focused on all of those key relationships, and our performance. That's not just our performance, but our team's performance. And at the intersection, ultimately, it's about our momentum, our mojo, and our mindset as leaders. And if we've got these 3 key areas, so energy, performance, and relationships, humming beautifully, like spinning plates, just all spinning as they're meant to be spinning, fueling each other, then our momentum and our mojo and our mindset will be where it needs to be. How that fits into authenticity is around this sustainable pace. If we don't have the right energy, we're going to run out of steam. Leadership can get heavy and ugly and burdensome really, really, really quickly if we're not really paying attention to energy. Our relationships, particularly around trust and influence, suffer if we're not turning up authentically for the reasons we've spoken about. People can smell mistrust, and it limits our ability to be influential. You can try and be influential by title, but it's much more powerful when you can be influential because people genuinely are bought in to what it is that you are offering as a vision. Much, much more powerful, much more sustainable place to come from leadership. And then in terms of our performance, it's around this alignment and action. So are we all pointing in the right direction? Do we all understand what our purpose is, why we're doing this thing? And if we do, then we're likely to bring about the motivation that we need. We set goals together, we achieve things together. So that is how authenticity fits into our language of deliberate leadership and what we specifically focus on in our Deliberate Leader program. All right. Right now, I'm going to pause because I've talked at you for about 35 minutes. But questions, comments, what's going through your mind? Feel free to pop it in the chat or feel free to unmute. Or if you want to move into Q&A, I'm happy for that too. No worries, Davina. What do you reckon about this authenticity thing?
Rachel, I have a question.
Yeah.
What if, say, for example, you don't have trust in some of your team? Not saying that I don't. I mean, I trust my team. But just say, for example, what if you don't have trust in some of your team members?
Yep. So
How does that affect?
Those that are reporting into you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I think, Raylene, it's I'm thinking back to teams that I've led where I've experienced some of that. I'm sure we all have at different times. We don't want to stay there too long. And if we don't trust, trust is tricky because for some people, once trust is broken, that's it. It's broken. It's very hard to come back from that. I think if we operate from the position that the 3 key factors of trust, which I subscribe to, it's David Meister's work, but for me, trust, you need to have credibility, reliability, and intimacy, which is the frequency and quality of our connection in a professional context. And then all that is undone if I'm only doing it to serve myself. That's effectively the trust equation. And if I didn't have that trust, I would be focused on where is it that I'm missing it? Is it the credibility piece? Is there something that they're not, that's making me question the credibility? Is it something that's making me question their reliability? So their commitment, their dedication, their commitment to, if they say they're going to do something, do they do it? Or finally, is it that we're not spending enough time together and therefore we don't really know each other well? And for most people, that's where it is. For most people, when they kind of dig into trust, it's we don't know each other well enough. So we don't know, we don't understand what's sitting behind the behaviors. We have lots of assumptions because we don't know, and maybe we haven't asked the right questions. Maybe we haven't built enough trust in them for them to give us those answers to those questions that we may have. But yeah, that's where I would start from with mistrust. I would look at reliability, credibility, and then intimacy? Are we spending enough time? And then I would make sure that we're really focused on why are we doing this? Why do we even need to be a team? What's our ultimate purpose and what are we trying to achieve? And that way we're building trust to serve everybody, not just me, because I need something from you because I'm your leader. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. I just sort of threw the question out there, sorry.
No, we want that. It's absolutely the time to do it.
Yeah,
Does
thank
anyone
you.
want to add anything else to Raylene's question or even Olivia's question before? So Olivia's question was on transparency and how transparent we should be. And then you've all just heard Raylene's question. Do you want to add anything else? Or any other questions?
I think, Rita, just the onset of being just genuine. I mean, for me, it was every time there's a big team, I get them in. I love using a whiteboard, but at the end of the day, my takeaway for them is I don't know everything. And if you've got a problem or an issue, and I put something up there and it doesn't seem right to you because you're at the coalface, put your hand up. Share it, learn from it. But it's that genuine, and you touch on the transparency and the voice and the consistency of meeting, to build that trust, and it's an important bit. If you break it, your team's just going to go south rather than north.
And Michael, what kinds of things do you do to ensure that when you're asking that question of your team, that they are forthcoming with ideas and things that are on their mind?
I was very straight, and Rita, you know me, I was very straight with the bat, and I'm not proud, but we do swear a little bit in procurement. So it was basically I don't know anything, and we've always worked about, like, if you put up something on the board, and again I'm finding it hard, and of course I'm showing my age now, unfortunately, but this, being able to take constructive criticism, the old cliche, but it's actually, we'll be in the room and we'll go, that is actually absolutely effed, right? And then I'll be going up to even my boss, but we've got the relationship to say, I'm not actually trying to throw you under the bus. We really want to get this right. And it's that dynamics of getting a team to actually be able to think like that and act like that, with no snipers or anything like that. You just want to, you've got a common goal. And my major takeaway with them was, with the last big group I had, was I basically said, I don't know everything. And if something's up there, tell me it's effed, right? And the funny thing was, I actually had the head of that team come up to me and pull me aside and go, you know what? We're really amazed. That's the first time, and some of these guys were there, they're seasoned. They were there for about 10, and they were I was just amazed that there were some seasoned people in there that weren't able to have that opportunity to say what they've experienced and whether something's right or wrong. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, for sharing. Because I think what you've given there is hopefully some ideas for people to really be thinking about. How do we do it? It's not enough to ask, but what are we doing to create those circumstances and those conditions around it, even in procurement teams? So thank you, Michael, because I think you might be the only representative from procurement here today. So thank you. All right, we'll keep it going. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to give enough time, just in case you've got any other questions too. But through those lenses of energy, relationships and performance, this slide here, it's a busy one, but it does hopefully give you a breadth of what we cover in our Deliberate Leader program. So authenticity is a big component of our Deliberate Leader program, which is why we wanted to really highlight it for you today. It is in particular part of that energy sub bracket, if you like, or sub component. And then you can see there the other modules that we cover in energy, along with what we cover in relationships and performance. So if you come along to any of our Deliberate Leader workshops or programs, this gives you a taste of the different things that we cover. Authenticity is only one part of it. And hopefully from today, you've got a sense of authenticity sits underneath awareness, which sits underneath, really knowing myself, but knowing my team, and that asking for feedback and me having the best intention around being self-aware is not going to be enough. I've really got to create that culture, which means people are going to, be happy and when we do want them to genuinely be happy, I'm not overstating that, but happy to contribute and to share what their experience is, what they're feeling, so they can, as Michael said, then get in front of a whiteboard and say, this is great or this is not, and they feel comfortable doing so. All right. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for attending today. There are different ways that we can work together. So obviously we run a number of programs here at the Deliberate Leader. We also offer coaching at 3 different levels. So for emerging leaders, middle level leaders and senior leaders, along with mentoring and emceeing and keynote speaking too. I love that, Michael. Try and be a mentor and not a tormentor. I do remember you saying that, which is awesome. So that's it for us today. Thank you very, very much for coming along. Our website is there, thedeliberateleader.com.au. There's a bunch of resources that we are always very happy to make available to you. If there's any questions that you've got from today's session, please reach out either to myself or Jay, and we will be more than happy to have a chat with you. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a beautiful rest of the week.
Thanks, Rita.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again, Rita.
Thanks, Rita.